Honorable Bob Rae, our guest. He is the foreign affairs critic for the Liberal Party of Canada. Would you like to run this country one fine day?
You take what you get. You take the cards you're dealt with. Right now, I'm very happy to be supporting our leader Michael Ignatieff and looking forward to an election whenever it comes. And I want to continue to play a role as part of the Liberal team.
You spent some time with Michael Ignatieff in, I think, Kurdistan,
yes,
in Iraq.
We did, yeah.
What was that experience?
Well, we were, that was when Michael was at Harvard and I was running the Forum of Federations, and the government of the sort of Kurdistan Authority, which it was at that time, as we were looking at transition, was very interested in looking at federal issues and a federal constitution for Iraq. So I actually went twice to Iraq, went with Michael to Kurdistan specifically, and then went back to Baghdad for 3 weeks in the summer of 2005 and worked with the National Assembly of Iraq on some of the issues that were facing them, and worked as an advisor to the UN office in Iraq.
So when the United States went into Iraq and other countries supported it for the wrong reasons, essentially, not that getting rid of Saddam Hussein is a wrong reason, but somebody didn't do the math, they tell me.
Well, I didn't. I was not a supporter of the invasion or intervention. I agreed with Mr. Chrétien and with Kofi Annan. I thought that the justification for the invasion was not there, and that there were other ways in which you would limit the power and scope of what Saddam Hussein could do. He was a brutal dictator, but he was hemmed in, and significantly hemmed in by sanctions and other steps that people were taking. So that, for example, Kurdistan had established a degree of autonomy already in the early period after the Gulf War. So I was not an advocate of the intervention. However, once the intervention had happened and the UN was re-engaged, then I didn't think Canada or anybody else could just walk away and say, well, we're not concerned about the stability of Iraq. The stability of Iraq is still a challenge for the world, and it's a challenge for the people of Iraq.
And good against evil is a challenge, but fighting an opponent with a different value system, difficult.
Yeah, well, but again, I think we need to be a little bit more encouraged by the fact that in just about any country you can name, there are an awful lot of people who who share some values that we do share. The notion that somehow the idea of good governance and the idea of accountability and transparency, so people say, well, these are Western ideas and they don't apply to other. I don't agree with that. I think that they may have been at one time, but there are parallels in many different cultures and many different religions. And mothers
love children,
and
all over the world.
I don't think that, I mean, to be very direct, I don't think that democracy is incompatible with Islam. I don't think it's incompatible with Hinduism or Confucianism or any other religion. It just depends on the extent to which people are prepared to recognize the need to live together and to work together to build a better place. And I don't see that these religious forces are necessarily antagonistic to that, but from our own experience in the West, I would say we need to put these religious views in perspective, that if your religion says I can't live with other people, or other people are completely inferior to me, then yeah, we do have a problem.
Yes, because you have a country of regions with different ethnicities, and somehow you have to find some peace there, but people are the engine of any country.
Right.
Essentially.
Yes.
So as you look at what's happening today in Yemen and Tunisia and Egypt and Iraq, how worried are you? Or do you think it's Arab world unrest and there is an answer?
Well, I mean, I don't think there are easy answers, and I think that there's always a very human desire for freedom and a human desire for democracy and greater accountability in government. And for work and for jobs that people don't have. There's also human demand for security and for stability, and I think those are all human realities that we see in any given society. So yeah, there will be an urge for people to say we've got to find some practical solutions to these problems and have to find a way to be able to move on and provide some
even in
security.
Countries where there's no tradition of democracy. It would be nice.
But you know,
or would it?
What's interesting is as things evolve, I mean, I think it takes, the other big thing for me is time. We have a tendency in the West to think that we can snap our fingers and get the answer, you know. Let's get this Constitution. Why does it have to take so long? I remember talking to a senior American official in Iraq. He said to me, why does it take so long to get this Constitution done? You know, they can get it off a shelf. We all know what's in a Constitution. They're all the same. I said, guy, look, it took you 20 years before you finalized your Constitution, and then it took you another 70 years before you figured out that slavery was a bad idea. So, you know, these things are universally difficult to do, and in our own case, the struggle for democracy and accountability took a hell of a long time. And
in our own country, election coming, not coming, certainly, as you know, they are starting to tour the press around, and the attack ads have hit. Is this Your Canada or Harper's Canada? So what do you think?
I think we're in a period of deep political engagement, and I think it's likely that
Good answer.
I think it's likely that it will lead eventually to an election. Whether that's sooner or later, I don't know. But we're going to see heightened kind of people pawing the ground on all sides and smoke pouring out of people's nostrils, and that looks to me like we're heading to an election.
As it should be.
That's right.
Now, one last question. I know you have to go. The United Arab Emirates, the fiasco with not giving them landing rights in Toronto. I'm confused about whether or not they just wanted to land in Toronto or fly across Canada to Vancouver.
Oh, no. They don't want to fly. They don't want to. The cat's called cabotage. They don't want that. No, nobody's going to give them that. You know, I think that this thing needs to be put back on the rails. I don't think the government took the engagement really seriously, and I think that as a result, the relationship has been allowed to fester, and I think it's important to try to get the relationship back on track. I understand from talking to my friend Scott Bryson, who's my fellow MP, that he had a meeting with Sheikh Abdullah, who's the foreign minister of the UAE, in Davos at the Economic Summit, and there was, I think, a great willingness on the part of Sheikh Abdullah to say, let's try to sit down and work something out. I hope the Prime Minister responds to that in a positive way.
At the moment, we need a visa now to go to the Emirates.
A very expensive visa, and they've also closed the base at Camp Mirage at a cost of about somewhere between $300 and $500 million.
As you know, someone suggested to you a patriotic politician should not bash the government, no matter where you go.
I don't do that. What I do is stand up for what I think is in the best interest of Canada, and I think I've always tried to do that as a political leader and as an individual. I'll continue to do that.
You dedicated this book to your father.
Yes, I did.
Why?
Well, he really introduced me to this world that we're in, the world of democracy. He wrote a book called with George Gallup. He was one of the first pollsters ever. I mean, my dad worked with George Gallup in the 1930s. Did his PhD thesis on public opinion and wrote a book with George Gallup called The Pulse of Democracy, and then went on to become a Canadian diplomat through the war and after in the sort of the Pearsonian and Diefenbaker, and worked for Mr. Trudeau and on. So he was a wonderful guy, and I wanted to pay tribute to him and let him know that the ideas that he'd talked about were still bouncing around my head.
Oh, great. Well, go sit in the cedar bark boat and catch a bass.
I will do that.
And have some fun.
Thanks very much. Great to be with you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
The risks and rewards, if she can say it, of pursuing a good idea, exporting democracy, the Honourable Bob Rae.